From charming TV transformations to facing life-altering battles off-screen, Drew Scott's journey is far more than meets the eye. Behind the polished reveals and cheerful banter lies a story few ever imagined. What really happened when the cameras stopped rolling? Stay with us, because what comes next may surprise you. In the world of television, fame often comes through planned routes, rehearsed opportunities, and deliberate branding. But for Drew Scott, the path was wildly unconventional. Even before he ever stood in front of a camera for HGTV, Drew's story was quietly taking shape on a small farm in Maple Ridge, a suburb of Vancouver, Canada. Born on April 28, 1978, Drew was minutes younger than his identical twin brother, Jonathan. Their parents, Jim and Joanne Scott, were both hardworking and creative spirits who deeply influenced their sons. Jim Scott had once worked as a professional cowboy, then moved into acting and stunt work in film and television. That exposure to the entertainment industry lingered in the background of the twins' upbringing, not as a direct career path, but as a whisper of what might be possible if you had the guts to try. Their home life emphasized self-reliance, creativity, and enterprise. One story that has often been retold by Drew and Jonathan in interviews centers around a moment when they were just 7 years old. Their father told them that if they wanted expensive toys or gear, they'd need to earn the money themselves. That push wasn't meant to be harsh, it was a lesson in empowerment. Rather than give them cash or say no, Jim offered them a chance to problem solve. And solve it they did. At age 8, the twins began making and selling decorative coat hangers. They used nylon and crafted colorful wraps around them, then went door to door, selling them with the charm and confidence of budding entrepreneurs. That project quickly scaled when a woman ordered several hundred hangers to sell in her own stores. The boys made hundreds of dollars, and with it, they tasted their first real success. They didn't know it then, but this moment laid the groundwork for the business acumen that would one day support a media empire. Drew's creative leanings weren't limited to business. He and Jonathan dabbled in clowning during their early teen years, literally. They took professional clown training, complete with balloon animal skills and magic tricks. They performed at birthday parties and public events, earning money while also refining their public speaking, stage presence, and comedic timing skills that would later become trademarks of their on-screen dynamic. In high school, Drew found himself pulled toward acting. He appeared in school plays and landed background roles in local productions. His first TV appearances included stints as a stand-in on Breaker High, the teen series that once starred a young Ryan Gosling, and a body double for Tom Welling in the hit superhero series Smallville. He was never the star, but his presence on set gave him something money couldn't buy: an inside look into the world of professional entertainment. Despite this growing interest in film, Drew didn't see acting as a full-time career just yet. His practical side kept him grounded. After high school, he enrolled at the University of Calgary, studying kinesiology and business. But even then, he couldn't ignore the urge to build something meaningful. This blend of curiosity, business instinct, and performance energy formed the DNA of the Drew we know today. The seeds of his public image, charming, funny, sharp, were being planted before anyone knew his name. And as Drew left his teenage years behind, it was clear that his path wasn't going to be linear. It would twist, pivot, and surprise him in ways no one could predict. But how does a teenage clown and part-time actor turn into a real estate mogul before even turning 30? The answer lies in one unexpected college hustle. Accidental real estate moguls. Drew Scott never set out to become a real estate tycoon. In fact, when he entered university, his dreams leaned more toward the entertainment industry than flipping houses. But, as it often happens, necessity has a way of redirecting passion into purpose. And in Drew's case, that detour would spark one of the most unlikely success stories in HGTV history. In the late 1990s, Drew and Jonathan enrolled at the University of Calgary. Drew studied kinesiology with a minor in business, while Jonathan pursued psychology. Despite their academic focus, the financial strain of student life loomed large. Rent, books, and living expenses added up quickly, and the twins realized they needed a sustainable income, not just weekend clown gigs or part-time jobs. So they did what came naturally. They created their own opportunity. With a loan from their parents and savings from odd jobs, Drew and Jonathan signed a lease on a rundown property near campus. The idea was simple: renovate it, live in one unit, and rent out the others to fellow students. But this wasn't just a makeshift dorm. It was their first venture into real estate. They poured sweat equity into the renovation process, learning about drywall, plumbing, and layout design through trial and error. That single project did more than pay the bills. It ignited something in both of them. Over the next few years, they began buying and selling homes, carefully selecting distressed properties that they could transform and resell at a profit. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was strategy. At this point, Drew's business instincts began to crystallize. The brothers found themselves relying on real estate agents who were either unreliable or uninterested in their vision. Frustrated by inconsistent service and poor negotiations, Drew decided to take matters into his own hands. He studied for and obtained his real estate license, arming himself with the knowledge and credentials to represent their deals directly. With this new credential, the brothers officially launched Scott Real Estate Inc., a company that began as a necessity but quickly grew into a serious operation. While Jonathan focused more on construction and design, Drew handled the financials, client negotiations, and property searches. Their natural synergy turned the small business into a scalable model. Their early properties weren't glamorous. They were often fixer-uppers in overlooked neighborhoods, but the twins had a gift for vision. They could walk into a crumbling home and see future potential, an attribute that would later become the hallmark of Property Brothers. And even though the margins were sometimes slim, they reinvested every dollar, focusing on growth and refinement of their craft. But Drew hadn't entirely let go of his entertainment ambitions. In 2006, he left Calgary and moved to Vancouver to pursue acting classes, hoping to rekindle the passion he'd once found on set. While he did land a few small roles and built a promising network in the industry, the financial burden of city life and inconsistent income caught up with him. He soon found himself in debt, scrambling to find a way out. Rather than panic, Drew tapped into his strengths. He opened a new branch of Scott Real Estate right in Vancouver, using the same buy, renovate, sell formula that had worked in Calgary. Once again, the combination of charm, hustle, and vision proved unstoppable. The Vancouver branch quickly took off, solidifying the Scotts as more than just lucky college flippers. They were now a brand. The irony wasn't lost on Drew. What began as a temporary solution, a way to pay for school, had quietly become a full-blown career. His childhood dream of becoming an entertainer was still alive. But now, it was sharing space with something else, a passion for helping people find and create homes that actually changed lives. Why did HGTV scrap its original show concept, and how did that lead to their breakout hit? Let us tell you. Creating the Property Brothers empire. By the late 2000s, Drew and Jonathan Scott had already built a solid real estate business across Calgary and Vancouver. They weren't just flipping homes, they were developing a philosophy of transformation that blended functionality with aesthetic appeal. But Drew couldn't shake his dream of working in television. His acting lessons, network contacts, and natural charisma kept nudging him toward the screen. The question wasn't whether he would return to TV, it was how. As fate would have it, the right opportunity was just around the corner. In 2009, Drew and Jonathan, along with their older brother JD, pitched a reality show idea to production companies. Their concept was simple but potent. Combine Drew's real estate expertise with Jonathan's construction knowledge to help families find and transform their dream homes. It would be part home renovation, part emotional storytelling, and part negotiation masterclass. Initially, the idea didn't land as expected. The production company Cineflix had a different plan in mind. They were working on a show called Realtor Idol, intended to mimic the American Idol format, where competing real estate agents would showcase their skills for a panel of judges. But something about the concept didn't feel right. It was more gimmick than story, and lacked the human connection viewers craved. That's when Drew introduced a new idea. Instead of finding a co-star through auditions, why not cast someone who had been there from the beginning? Someone who already understood the highs and lows of home transformations. His twin brother, Jonathan. Jonathan had experience in construction and renovation, but more importantly, the brothers had chemistry that couldn't be manufactured. Producers took a chance and changed course. This pivot birthed what would become Property Brothers, a home renovation reality show with a heart. In this format, Drew would help clients search for undervalued properties that had potential, while Jonathan would lead the construction and design phases. It was a powerful duo, part realtor, part contractor, and all storytelling. HGTV picked up the show, and in 2011, Property Brothers premiered to instant success. Viewers were hooked not just by the renovations, but by the dynamic between the two brothers. Drew's friendly professionalism and negotiation skills were complemented perfectly by Jonathan's hands-on grit and humor. They were approachable, entertaining, and above all, authentic. What made Property Brothers different from other renovation shows was its emotional structure. Each episode wasn't just about remodeling a house, it was about reimagining a life. The show followed a predictable arc: the excitement of house hunting, the devastation of budget or design obstacles, and the joy of the final reveal. But what kept audiences loyal was the sincerity of the hosts. Drew didn't just find houses, he found solutions to people's dreams. And that made all the difference. Behind the scenes, the Scotts worked hard to keep the production smooth and the outcomes impactful. Drew helped develop budgets, secure financing, and ensure that homes were actually livable. After filming, wrapped an important distinction from other design shows that only dressed up rooms temporarily. The brothers also founded Scott Brothers Entertainment, their own production company, which gave them creative control over the content and opened doors to spin-offs and other ventures. Over time, the empire grew. Spin-offs like Buying and Selling, Brother vs. Brother, and Forever Home expanded the brand, but the heart remained the same. Whether helping families stay in place or start over, Drew and Jonathan made real estate and renovation feel personal. Drew's childhood dream had finally come full circle. He was on television not as a fictional character, but as his most authentic self. He had taken a career in real estate, a business born of necessity, and merged it with storytelling. The outcome? A media brand built on trust, transformation, and heart. Why was Drew suddenly missing from the show's 7th season, and what dark reality was unfolding behind the scenes? Come with us to know. Drew's mysterious health crisis. For years, Property Brothers had been a beacon of consistency. Week after week, viewers watched Drew and Jonathan transform lives, one renovation at a time. The bond between the brothers was part of the show's magic. Unshakable, reliable, always upbeat. So when the 7th season premiered in September 2019, fans were quick to notice something strange. Drew was absent in several episodes, and his on-screen presence seemed quieter than usual. Theories began swirling online. Was he feuding with Jonathan? Was he burned out? Or was something much more serious happening? What many fans didn't realize at the time was that the crisis unfolding wasn't Drew's. It was his older brother, J.D. Scott. Although Drew remained professionally active, he and the family were silently supporting J.D. through a terrifying and mysterious health battle. Because of the public's association with Property Brothers, many mistakenly assumed Drew was the one facing a health issue. The truth was just as heartbreaking, and it rocked the Scott family to its core. J.D., known to some viewers from occasional appearances in Scott Brothers spin-offs, had been experiencing debilitating symptoms for over a year. What began as mild fatigue quickly turned into something far more sinister. He suffered from intense heat sensitivity, feeling like his skin was on fire at even mildly warm temperatures. He reported cognitive fog, tremors, and extreme exhaustion. At times, he felt faint after climbing stairs or standing too long. For a while, doctors were baffled. The search for a diagnosis became a frustrating and emotionally draining experience. JD underwent test after test, some suggesting lupus, others pointing to possible neurological issues. His symptoms didn't fit neatly into any known condition, and the fear of an undiagnosed terminal illness loomed large. Drew and Jonathan stood by their brother, but behind their public smiles and television charm, there was real fear. The family rarely spoke publicly about what was happening at first, choosing instead to focus on finding answers. It wasn't until late 2019 that JD received a proper diagnosis, a combination of mercury poisoning and fluoroquinolone toxicity, a reaction to a common antibiotic that can cause lasting side effects. The poisoning explained many of his mysterious symptoms, including the neurological issues and the severe heat intolerance. It was both a relief and a new kind of challenge. Mercury poisoning is treatable, but recovery can take years, and the effects are often slow to fade. Through it all, Drew continued filming when he could, though often with a heavy heart. His focus was divided between work and family, and though he kept most of his personal concerns private, the emotional toll was evident to those closest to him. JD's illness didn't just affect his own health, it reshaped the rhythm of the entire Scott family. Drew later admitted in interviews that the experience was a wake-up call, a reminder that success and fame mean nothing if your health or the health of someone you love is compromised. The experience also showed just how demanding the pace of television production can be. Drew had to step back slightly to be there for JD, and though Jonathan kept the show running smoothly, fans noticed the difference. The absence of the full Scott dynamic raised flags, and though Drew didn't initially address it, the truth eventually came out in family interviews and JD's own social media posts. Despite the confusion about which brother was sick, the entire situation gave fans a glimpse into the vulnerability of the seemingly untouchable Scott family. They weren't just charming TV personalities, they were human, navigating complex and painful realities like anyone else. But even with a diagnosis in hand, could JD truly recover? And what role would Drew play in helping him rebuild his life piece by piece? Recovery and resilience. The diagnosis was a breakthrough, but it was far from the end of the journey. When doctors finally identified mercury poisoning and fluoroquinolone toxicity as the culprits behind J.D. Scott's relentless symptoms, there was no simple prescription or one-size-fits-all cure. What came next was a long, uncertain road, a journey that would test the patience, willpower, and emotional strength of everyone involved. And for Drew Scott, it marked a defining chapter in his life, away from camera lights and set designs. As JD began to understand what had been happening to his body, his daily routine changed dramatically. He had to eliminate almost everything familiar from his lifestyle, starting with his diet. Gluten, dairy, soy, sugar, caffeine, gone. Instead, he adopted a strict regimen built around anti-inflammatory and detoxifying foods. Supplements became central to his healing protocol. Activated charcoal for toxin absorption, B-complex vitamins for neurological support, and high-grade probiotics to rebuild gut health. He also underwent IV therapies and chelation, a process that binds heavy metals in the body and helps remove them. The treatments weren't without side effects, and recovery was not linear. Drew stood by his brother through it all. As one of the public faces of the Scott family, he kept most of the private struggle out of the spotlight, but made it clear that family came first. He worked closely with Jonathan and JD to ensure that business commitments didn't overshadow what really mattered: health, support, and presence. In many ways, Drew's decision to scale back his on-screen involvement during this time showed a quiet resilience of its own. For JD, the emotional toll of illness was just as heavy as the physical one. On social media, he revealed that at his lowest, he felt isolated and depressed. "I had moments where I honestly wondered if I was dying," he admitted in a deeply personal video. Despite being surrounded by family, the unpredictable nature of his illness created a sense of uncertainty that no one could fully resolve. There were days when he couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. Other days, he would feel a flicker of normalcy, only for the symptoms to return with double the force. In response, Drew and Jonathan adjusted their professional lives to create space. They restructured shoots, added flexibility into filming schedules, and provided JD the freedom to rest without pressure. Though Drew continued to appear on Property Brothers and spin-offs, it was clear that behind the scenes, his attention was split between TV projects and medical appointments, treatments, and emotional check-ins. But through this storm, something unexpected happened. The experience brought the family even closer. Drew, often seen as the more extroverted and driven brother, found strength in slowing down. He became more involved in wellness causes and quietly began researching holistic approaches to health. He started to speak more openly about mental health, resilience, and the importance of self-care topics that rarely found a place in the home renovation world. Eventually, JD's condition began to improve. The treatments were working, albeit slowly. His energy started returning, his pain lessened, and most importantly, hope came back into focus. It was a victory shared by the entire Scott family. And while JD's road to full recovery wasn't guaranteed, the trajectory was upward. This shifted Drew's priorities, as success was no longer measured by ratings or renovation budgets. It was about being present, protecting the people he loved, and learning to find strength in vulnerability. Fans who followed the story online expressed admiration not just for the perseverance of the Scott family, but for Drew's quiet loyalty through it all. Beyond the bright lights and difficult diagnoses, who was the woman quietly standing beside Drew? And how did their love story unfold away from the cameras? Love, fatherhood, and life beyond the show. While Drew Scott was building one of the most recognizable brands in home renovation television, there was a quieter, more intimate story unfolding in the background. One that involved love, resilience, and a powerful partnership that would help carry him through his most personal challenges. At the center of that story was Linda Fan, a woman whose influence on Drew's life has been both grounding and transformative. They first met in 2010 at a Toronto Fashion Week event. Drew, fresh off filming early episodes of Property Brothers, was immediately struck by Linda's intelligence, independence, and quiet confidence. Linda, a creative director and venture capitalist, wasn't impressed by fame or fortune. She was drawn to Drew's energy, not his on-screen persona. Their connection was rooted in shared values, creativity, ambition, and a deep love for adventure. Their relationship moved slowly but intentionally. Over the years, they traveled together, collaborated professionally, and supported each other through career shifts and personal growth. While Drew's life was becoming increasingly public, Linda remained calm behind the scenes, helping manage his schedule and even working with Scott Brothers Entertainment in creative roles. She was more than a partner. She was a stabilizing force in a fast-moving world. In December 2016, after 6 years together, Drew proposed to Linda in an intimate setting, complete with a custom-designed ring and a private screening of a short film he had created just for her. 2 years later, in May 2018, they tied the knot in an elaborate Italian ceremony surrounded by family and close friends. The wedding was so enchanting that it became the centerpiece of a TLC special titled Drew and Linda Say I Do, giving fans a rare glimpse into their private world. But while their wedding felt like a fairy tale, real life wasn't without its challenges. After their marriage, Drew and Linda began trying to start a family. It wasn't easy. Linda was diagnosed with Graves' disease, an autoimmune disorder that can impact fertility. They quietly began working with fertility specialists and explored a number of options, including IUI and IVF. Throughout the emotional and physical roller coaster of fertility treatment, Drew remained openly supportive, and the couple chose to share parts of their journey with fans. Their honesty resonated with many who were navigating similar paths in silence. In one particularly heartfelt interview, Drew stated, "You can build all the dream homes in the world, but family is the foundation that truly matters." In May 2022, after years of patience and perseverance, their son, Parker James Scott, was born. It was a moment of pure joy not just for Drew and Linda, but for fans who had watched their story evolve from a quiet courtship to this beautiful new chapter. Drew took to social media to share the news, beaming with pride and thanking Linda for her strength and courage. Fatherhood changed Drew in subtle but profound ways. He became more intentional about his time, carving out space in his schedule to be present for Parker's milestones. He and Linda shared parenting duties equally, always mindful of striking a balance between their public personas and private family moments. In 2024, the couple welcomed their second child, a daughter named Piper Ray. Once again, their fans celebrated the news like it was a family event, a testament to how deeply connected audiences felt to the Scotts, not just as TV personalities, but as real people navigating love, adversity, and growth. Today, Drew and Linda represent something rare in the world of reality television: authenticity. Their bond has weathered public attention, health struggles, fertility challenges, and the ever-shifting tides of career success. As Drew's family life blossomed, so did his vision. What surprising new projects were the brothers planning next that would take their legacy even further? A future rebuilt and personal legacy. With family life blossoming and his health finally in balance, Drew Scott stood at a crossroads, but not the kind you fear. This time, it was about growth. For years, Drew and Jonathan had been the face of Property Brothers, evolving from real estate renovators to full-scale television personalities. Yet behind the familiar blueprints and witty banter, a transformation was underway. The Scotts weren't just producing shows anymore, they were building a creative legacy with impact far beyond home renovations. The foundation of that vision is Scott Brothers Entertainment, a company Drew and Jonathan launched to take control of their storytelling and expand their influence in television. What began as a way to protect the authenticity of Property Brothers has turned into a full-fledged production house. Under its banner, the brothers began creating new formats and branching into diverse lifestyle content. And as the years rolled on, their storytelling matured to reflect new values: emotional connection, sustainability, entrepreneurship, and community. One standout project was Celebrity IOU, a heartfelt series in which A-list stars like Brad Pitt, Viola Davis, and Melissa McCarthy surprised loved ones with home renovations, all orchestrated by Drew and Jonathan. These weren't just design makeovers, they were emotional gifts. The show proved that home is where stories unfold, memories are made, and love finds its space. It also positioned the Scotts as empathetic hosts who could manage delicate stories while still delivering stunning results. Their newest projects further reveal the evolution of their vision. In 2024, HGTV announced two new shows spearheaded by the brothers, Backed by the Bros and Don't Hate Your House. The former isn't just about property, it's about passion. The series follows Drew and Jonathan as they mentor aspiring entrepreneurs and help them turn promising ideas into profitable ventures, blending real estate with business development. The latter helps frustrated homeowners rediscover the hidden potential of homes they once loved but have grown to dislike. These shows signal something important. Drew is no longer only interested in creating dream homes, he's passionate about creating better lives. His journey from DIY renovator to full-spectrum storyteller includes a growing commitment to sustainability. Drew and Jonathan now incorporate eco-friendly materials, energy-efficient appliances, and low-waste construction methods into their renovations. For them, building a dream home means building for the future, too. Their success isn't limited to the screen. Drew is also a published author, having co-written several books on home design and personal development with Jonathan. Their 2016 memoir, It Takes Two, Our Story, became a New York Times bestseller, offering fans a deeper look into their bond and the lessons they've learned along the way. They've also penned design guides that combine practical advice with storytelling flair. Even their personal passions have found screen time. In the short series Drew's Dream Car, Drew chronicled the emotional process of restoring a classic car, blending craftsmanship with nostalgia. A subtle reminder that homes aren't the only things worth rebuilding. Every project, big or small, adds to the mosaic of Drew's evolving brand. Authentic, forward-thinking, emotionally grounded, and they aren't slowing down. In recent interviews, Drew has hinted at ambitions beyond television, including more immersive digital content, philanthropy, and possibly even branching into children's education through design-based learning. Always curious, always innovating, Drew remains a creator at heart. What makes Drew's trajectory so remarkable isn't just the scale of his success, it's the intention behind it. He has lived through public triumphs and private trials, and each chapter has informed the next. Whether he's restoring a century-old farmhouse or helping a celebrity renovate their assistant's home, his core message remains the same: build with heart, lead with empathy, and always leave room for hope. What are your thoughts on Drew Scott's emotional journey and everything he's been through? Drop your thoughts in the comments.